Welcome to the many interpretations of Nanuqsaurus. Nanuqsaurus was a tyrannosaurid that lived in the late Cretaceous of what is now North America, more specifically Alaska. We are continuing the trend of taking a look at more cold prehistoric creatures. Last week we talked about Eutyrannus, now we're talking about Nanuqsaurus. Of course, the environment in which Nanuqsaurus lived in was relatively cold during the late Cretaceous. Mind you, not nearly as cold as it would get today, but still cold for the time, especially during the winters. So this certainly does fit the build. More often than not, when you see like paleoart and other depictions of Nanuqsaurus, it is in a cooler environment. So this definitely does work out. Plus, the name Nanuqsaurus translates to polar bear lizard. Anyway, we do have some awesome depictions to take a look at, so let's get right into this. We'll start off with Walking with Dinosaurs 2013. This handsome fella right here. Now, I know what you're thinking and what you might be typing right now. Isn't this Gorgosaurus? And you are absolutely right. It is Gorgosaurus. There's some history to this. When Nanuqsaurus was first discovered, it was thought that this was another species of Gorgosaurus, a tyrannosaurid that was already established. And so when the movie came out and it took place in Alaska, the environment in which this animal lived, it was Gorgosaurus that was represented here. It wasn't until after the movie was released and a closer analysis of those fossils was done that we found out that these fossils are far more in line for Tyrannosaurine, which of course is not what Gorgosaurus was. Gorgosaurus was a Albertosaurine. This kind of recontextualized the way that we looked at this available fossil material, and it led to the conclusion that the fossils we had belonged to a brand new species that was later named Nanuqsaurus hoglandi, which means that this Gorgosaurus would not be a Gorgosaurus at all. It would be Nanuqsaurus. This is actually something that they rectified in the documentary version of this movie. If you didn't know, the movie was kind of like cut up into a documentary, and it was narrated by Doctor Strange himself, Benedict Cumberbatch. And instead of calling it a Gorgosaurus in that documentary version, they call it Nanuqsaurus, even though it looks like a Gorgosaurus. So I do appreciate them doing that. That keeps it in line with accuracy, even though it doesn't look like a Nanuqsaurus, of course. That's as far as I'll talk about it, though, because again, it was designed as Gorgosaurus, not Nanuqsaurus. As Gorgosaurus, it looks great. So, yeah, we'll just move on. After that, we have T-Rex and Evolutionary Journey. This one looks okay. This one looks pretty okay. It is covered in feathers. It's got a basic kind of like Tyrannosaur build. It's very bulky, has a very blocky head, breaking arms, which is unfortunate. And yeah, that's fairly standard for most of these designs. It does seem like it's more in line with like Jurassic Park's T-Rex, especially in that skull shape. And I'm not a big fan of how the feathers kind of like stop at the base of the skull right there. It seems like there would be a little bit more of an overlap as it goes onto the animal's face. And the breaking arms is truly unfortunate. The white feathers is going to be a very common theme going forward. Actually, feathers in general will be a common theme. Of course, we haven't found feathers on Nanuqsaurus specifically, but it is likely that most, if not all, tyrannosaurs had feathers. And if any dinosaur is a candidate to have them, it would certainly be Nanuqsaurus, because again, the environment in which it lived in was relatively cold. So, I mean, this is a fairly decent start for Nanuqsaurus specifically. Not too many complaints other than the breaking wrists. After that, there's Amazing Dino World, and we have a better step in the correct direction. I actually really like the way that this one looks. Again, white feathers. Also, the white feathers kind of make it look like white fur, which is like the transparent fur that polar bears have, because polar bears actually don't have white fur. They have transparent fur. Fun fact of the day. But it is kind of reminiscent to polar bear fur, which, again, Nanuqsaurus is named. The name translates to polar bear lizard, even though it's not a polar bear or a lizard. The skull has been slimmed down a little bit, and the hands actually seem to be facing the correct way, at least from what I can tell. So overall, this is a huge improvement from the last one, and looks great, especially with the way that the feathers kind of go onto the animal's head. Also important to note, it is a little bit more bulky, which we will get into a little bit more as the video progresses. Then we have Dino Dana. Now, this one does seem to be relatively small. It is important to note that the fossil material that we have of Nanuqsaurus do seem to be from a younger individual. So the size in which it is not the size of an adult. That means that the animal still had some growing to do. Some of these depictions that we have are going to be based off of the younger specimen, which means that their size is going to be small unless you don't consider them adults, in which, yeah, they're still growing. Dino Dana does seem to be small. also has like the white coloration, but with some black spots, which looks really cool. Also, they have kind of like the darker face, like the darker snout. And yeah, actually, everything about this looks really cool. I really do quite dig this. I think this is a very fantastic design, and the quality of the CGI also looks awesome. I also really like the darker feathers on the animal's head. It like just I don't know, it adds some extra pizzazz to it, I suppose. I don't know. I think it looks great. Then after that, we have Dinosauria, done by Dead Sound here on YouTube. Both Dinosauria and Sauria, because it does show up in both of those projects. Highly recommend checking these out. Like, I recommend it every time whenever I bring it up. Seriously, fantastic shows. They're just like really awesome to watch. You would not regret watching them. Go and watch them. But the Nanuqsaurus right here look fantastic. I really do quite like them. They have the same attributes that we've been seeing a lot, the white fur with like a darker snout, darker lacrimal horns, lacrimal crests right above its eyes, which looks awesome. And the quality of the animation just looks so good. Everything about it looks so good. I'll also talk about the feathers a little bit too. Again, they're mostly portrayed as like white, which is certainly a lot closer to polar bears or something like that, which don't have feathers, have fur. Now, white year round is, of course, unlikely, but I, of course, have heard the ideas proposed that maybe their feathers are able to change color through the seasons. Like maybe they did have white feathers in the winter. Of course, that's something that we don't truly know. Just a little fun piece of speculation right there. If I remember correctly, the white feathers were addressed in his behind the scenes information. So, you definitely check that out too. Like seriously, the behind the scenes stuff is really fun to watch as well. After that, we have Alaskan dinosaurs. This one doesn't look bad. Like, it doesn't look too bad. It has somewhat more sparse feathers with some brighter colors this time. We don't have the white feathers that we've been seeing quite a bit. The quality of the CGI isn't the best. This one likely had a smaller budget compared to other projects, but it really doesn't look terrible. It looks like one of those models that just shows up every once in a while to get the point across. And I think it does a good job at that. So great, fantastic. Let us move on. After that is Prehistoric Planet, which these fellas that show up in Prehistoric Planet, both season 1 and 2, are based off of the younger specimen, which means that their adult size is smaller than what it would have been in life. They are also a little bit more slim than Nanuqsaurus would have been. It was actually once considered that Nanuqsaurus was a little bit more slim in its overall bodily proportions. It wasn't until, of course, later analysis that we found out that it's a lot more in line with other tyrannosaurids, as in it's a lot more bulky, very similar to something like Tarbosaurus or even Tyrannosaurus rex. So this guy is certainly a lot more, or these guys rather, there's quite a few of them that show up. But these guys are quite a bit like thinner than they likely would have been in life. They still look fantastic though. The quality of the CGI looks absolutely amazing. The feathers look really cool too. I like the difference in color. Like you get some lighter patches in the darker feathers, and the kind of like hints of red that you have on the snout look really good too. The babies also look fantastic. I like how different their patterns look from the adults. Everything about them just looks fantastic aside from those few inaccuracies. Now we have the Pathotines mod that was done by KTO. This does look pretty darn good so far. It has a little bit more of some sparse feathers, as in the type of feathers that cover the animal's back and kind of just stop right there. The rest of the animal's a little bit more bald, which is probably just as likely as most of the other depictions that we've seen. Really do like the skull shape. We don't have a lot of fossil material of Nanuqsaurus' skull, so a lot of that is certainly up in the air. It is a little bit more slim in its overall proportions, but everything does look good. And of course, you do get different variations on it. It's all just like variation on Hoglandi, the only species that we have. Here's a battle damaged one that looks sick. Like, look how it's like missing, like look how damaged its eye is. It's really cool. Documentary variant, D. Horneri inspired, Daspletosaurus wilsoni inspired, Tyrannosaurus inspired. Very interesting. Let's go and check it out in the dramatic rain. But I do quite like it. I think that they did a great job with it. As usual, the animations I'd say are pretty fluid, and it's actually like really cool to see it running through the forest with this this rain coming down. I quite like it. I think it's pretty cool. I haven't checked out animations yet. I love little animations like that because it's just helps make like it helps ground the animal. You know, it helps make it feel like it's, you know, a real animal. That's awesome. But yeah, this is yet another good depiction. I do quite like it. So yeah, hats off to them. I think that's another very good mod. And there we have it. That was Nanuqsaurus. Pretty underrated dinosaur overall. It's probably one that still has a lot more room to show up in media, and it probably will show up in media. Same with some other creatures that we've talked about. It seems like there's a little bit of a surgence in their appearances, which is absolutely awesome because I would love to see more of this animal. If there are any that I didn't include, but you know about, be sure to let us know in the comments below and, you know, discuss it amongst everyone else. And that's pretty much all I have for this one. If you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. That really does help the channel out a lot. And if you want to help support the channel, help me make more awesome dinosaur and prehistoric content, please consider pledging to my Patreon. The link is down below if that's something that you're interested in. But I do appreciate each and every one of you. And until the next video, thank you guys so much for watching and have an awesome day.